Good morning and good afternoon, everyone. Welcome. My name is Rahul Arora. I am Deputy General Manager Sales at HNI India. I want to thank you all for joining us today for this session. This session is fourth in the series of webinars that we have been doing over the past 1.5 months. With these sessions, our endeavor has been to bring forward thoughts and opinions of best of the minds in the industry on some of the current and relevant topics. The topic that we are discussing today is one of the burning issues right now. In the last few months, we have all worked remotely and have realized that whether you are in an office or home or somewhere else, the work gets done. But as we move out of the lockdown phase to the unlock phase, the question that everybody is thinking about are, does it matter where the work gets done? What's the future of remote working? And that's why we have a distinguished panel here today to share their views on this topic. So without further ado, let me introduce you to our panelists. In no particular order, on the panel we have Laila Khalil, Director, Corporate Operations and Business Continuity Planner at Lowe's India. Laila has also been associated with Coronet Global for more than 10 years and is currently serving as the co-chair for the Coronet Global India chapter. With an MBA from Texas A&M University, US, and an undergraduate degree in architecture from Manipal Institute of Technology, Laila has an experience of more than 20 years across global business operations, corporate real estate, and workplace strategy. Welcome, Laila. Next on the panel, we have Reem Saleh, Head of Workplace Strategy, Planning and Experience, APJ at HP Inc. A doctorate and an MBA and BSc, Reem is a workplace futurist with over 15 years of experience in corporate real estate knowledge across workplace strategy, portfolio planning, and design. Welcome, Reem. We have Subrat Lahiri, Head of Real Estate Projects at ABB India, a seasoned professional with an experience of more than 25 years in real estate delivery management, including projects, maintenance, procurement. Subrat has worked on multiple assignments within India and outside. Welcome, Subrat. Our next panelist is Scott Weston, Director Customer Experience at Cisco APJC. Scott Weston is an Australian who is based in Singapore and has 20 years of experience with Cisco, working across and in several countries in Asia, Pacific, Japan, and China. He has been a leader of various dynamic and diverse teams of engineering and business focused on providing technical and professional services along with business portfolio growth. Lastly, from HNI, on the panel, we have Michael Henningsen, Director of Global Accounts and Workplace. Michael, with his passion for design and workplace, coupled with over 20 years of experience in furniture, works with HNI's regional and global accounts to create great workplaces across multiple regions. Michael will be moderating today's session, and now I hand it over to Michael to begin today's session.
Thank you, Rahul. It was interesting preparing for this session because as we're doing everything remotely, one of my pieces of technology did not work. And so we had to switch to another piece of technology. And so these are kind of the tactical on the ground issues that we're dealing with, but we're also dealing as organizations with very complex issues around technology, productivity, employee engagement, and other critical issues that were sprung upon us with really little or no warning. And what's interesting about the panel today, which I'm excited about, is, first of all, it's the first panel that we've had since we've been doing these that is made up of our corporate occupiers and corporate companies rather than the consultants. We mostly had the strategists and the designers on the previous. So this is really going to be great to hear their point of view on this. The other thing that's quite interesting about this panel is I think all of them were had different policies on remote work and work from home. We're sort of different stages in that when this all started. So I think the perspectives are quite well-rounded. So I'd like to start with a question to all the panelists. And the question is, if you could share with us your company's experience or your personal experience as we entered this, both voluntary in some cases, and then for all cases, government mandated work from home periods. What were the new realities that you had to address and how did you adapt? So I'll start with Subrat.
Good morning, Michael, thanks. That's very interesting when you say voluntary. But to start with it, our organization has a profile which is more into production factories, then projects, then sales and R&D. So definitely, we had all these policies of remote working and, which included work from home also. But this lockdown actually meant, and the extended lockdown meant, that everybody, all the teams have to work from home. So this was very unique, and I think so for the complete fraternity, which is as a panelist or as who has joined this webinar, was very new for them. It was the first time, I think so, in the life it has happened. But the point is, as human beings, we adjust very fast. And this happened that we were able to adjust fast, barring to this like digital connectivities issues, etc. The organization actually had provided all the tools. So to work from remote, from anywhere, all the tools were available. So it was actually very fast to actually take care of that and start working for it. But the point is, the organization and the task force which were there, they also actually backed that how this work from home has to work, what are the modalities for it, everything. They had the guidelines and they were able to immediately send to everybody, and people started working on this. Now, it also meant that how people have to work, because they were actually in the offices and everything. How so to have the collaborative approach and to connect with each other, very important was to have the team meetings and then to take it forward from there. And I think so a lot of online discussions happened. Offline digital communication also happened, because many times we do it in the offices also. So that also happened actually. And there were instances, let me admit it, there were instances that we had a lot of meetings, and the meetings more than often which happen in the office stage. So there was a fatigue also felt. But yes, we have to devise our own solutions to do that. So, and that is being worked upon presently also, that yes, how much meetings have to be done, etc. But one very important thing is it brought a very familiar insight of informality. You will find the family members walking through, you will see some pets walking through, or and this was the new normal. The formal way of working in the office went off, and this is there, and everybody accepted it. Even I think so most of I agree that some of the colleagues were munching the lunches and breakfast actually also when these meetings are going on, because this was long. So this was there, but the reality is the people also wanted an emotional backing. So there were a lot of sessions being conducted for that the people are emotionally connected. Any special sessions are required, that also were there. So the people were always at there if you need any emotional need or something, that was there. One interesting part was that the physical exercise, etc. So there were classes being done, digital classes being done on this physical thing. So there was a lot of impetus that as you are in home also, that you are physically fit. And that not only helped the employees, it also helped their families also. One feedback is that now people got a habit with this extended lockdown. People got a habit of doing all this different time meditation, yoga, etc. And people are really enjoying that yeah, we were able to take it. So overall, if you see the adaptability, the collaborative approach, everything worked. And work from home brought a lot of productivity also, with all the reasons, good reasons attached to it. But yes, whatever has to be done in the factories, whatever was to be done in the projects, I would say that remained undone, and we are now catching up and doing it. So yes, work from home, yes, we adapted well. Yeah, Michael.
That's fantastic. I learned a couple new things there. Thank you. Scott, can you share with us your thoughts on this?
Thanks, Michael. Yeah, being an employee of Cisco, we're very much an advocate of not just work from home, but work anywhere. And to the fact that we have a Cisco office in Singapore that has up near 1,000 employees, but only has 280, 300 desks. So, we really much have adapted that principle of not only working from home, but working anywhere. I mean, even last year, I spent a lot of time taking calls, doing work in airports, hotels, back of cars, so that's our policy. And we have a lot of collaboration tools that make that possible. So really for us, it was more around, and I can probably talk about it a little bit later in another question, but really it was how do we help our customers adapt to that, right? We're used to it, and you know, so it was about, you know, can they get the files to us? Can they get the information to us effectively in a speedy manner, etc. So for us, the real change was adapting to our customers, who had, some of them in some cases had to go through a lot of changes. You're on mute, Mike.
Reen, what do you think, Scott? Reen, what do you have to say about this?
Hi, Michael. So mobility strategy actually requires a mind shift, right? A change in how we work. So when we say work from home, we are referring to the change of the work environment itself. And this differs from each individuals, and we need to recognize that some transition easily and some not. So because we are moving into individual hierarchical needs from workspace to personal space, for example, home as an environment, it means that we can work anywhere at individual home environment, but you know, sometimes in study room, kitchen counters, you know, some even having to change, you know, storage room into their workspace. So there's a lot more of adaptation in this work from home. So my advice would really plan your day according to your tasks and move around your environment that you're comfortable with, and then move ahead with the work from home.
Great, thank you, Reen. Layla?
Hi, first of all, good morning and good afternoon to all our listeners. And thank you, Rahul and Michael, for having me on this panel. So just a quick introduction to myself. So, you know, I manage the workplace strategy and operations for Lowe's services in India. And I also do have an extended responsibility for leading business continuity planning for the India site. So, you know, being part of the risk assessment and the BCP team, we were perhaps already observing how the situation was evolving around us globally in, you know, at the start of the year. And we were sort of aware to some extent what was coming our way. For instance, you know, we had sort of made our travel policy stricter. It was getting tighter. You had to have a very strict business reason to approve business essential travel and things like that. So sometime in March, you know, when this thing was like sort of rolling its way towards India, and, you know, within Lowe's, we do have a work from home policy, but it existed in some sort of a loose fashion. You know, it could be exercised by the employees at the manager's discretion. And so what I'd like to also provide here is some sort of context is that, you know, we're a fairly young organization. So which means that we've existed in India for a little over 5 years, but we also have a very young demographic. The average age of our employees is about 27 years, and they had a lot of good reasons to come to office. You know, high levels of engagement, good ergonomics, great amenities at the workplace. So with all of this, and most importantly, you know, our teams were growing. There was a lot of cross-functional interaction and collaboration occurring between the teams. And every week we had new employees joining. So, you know, with so much of activity and energy and buzz, and then suddenly, you know, you have to move to a work from home mode, it wasn't really very difficult because technically we were equipped. You know, everybody had their laptops, they had access to data connections. But what, however, came as a surprise to us was the length of the lockdown. And I think this goes back to, you know, something that Subrat mentioned earlier. So what everybody saw this initially was just a temporary relief from home. You know, you're working from home, but then, you know, week after week, with the extension of the lock time, I think everybody realized that this is going to be the new normal for some time. And, you know, it did take us a couple of weeks to sort of adapt to adhering to a particular work schedule and routine. And it also perhaps meant that, you know, some of our employees were working overtime. We did also introduce some strict protocols when it came to accessing the office. It wasn't allowed for people to access our office. And so what that meant is that we had security teams going ahead and delivering IT assets and hardware to the employees to enable them to connect from home and work from home. So I would say that over, having observed the trends in the past 3 months, we have adapted to the situation. We have learned a few lessons, and we've also gotten a little smarter in managing the risk aspect. And also when it comes to revising our existing policies or perhaps even implementing new policies if required.
Thank you. Yeah, and it was quite interesting. I think you heard that in those introductions that I think everyone was sort of at a different place in the life cycle of work from home. So it's really a great panel for that reason. Rahul is going to put a poll up now. And the question is, what is your organization's current status on remote work or work from home? And so just sort of select the question that best fits your experience. And I have a question actually, Laila, for you. Understanding that you already were doing a lot of remote working with your colleagues supporting in the US, all of the retail operation in US. And so one of the questions our attendees sent in advance was about technique, diction, mannerisms, and other things that make you feel you're interacting with a person. How does that translate on the screen? Because you probably had to deal with that as well as the language or accents and things like that prior to this happening. So how did that help you during this time in the transition?
I'm sorry.
Can you hear?
I can. You just like sort of broke up for a bit. So could you please repeat what the question was?
Yeah, you already were doing a lot of remote collaboration with your colleagues in the US supporting the Lowe's retail operation. So things like mannerisms, diction, technique that don't always come across, that we see in person but don't come across. How did your experience with that help you during this time for your folks that had locally that had to communicate together?
Well, I think in terms of that, there wasn't really any great adaptability that was required because, the teams here in India are serving the customers that serve the customers in the retail stores in the US and Canada. And I'm going to speak a little bit more about that later in this discussion. But I think for us, the greater learning has been, how do we all interact, remotely? Because, the teams are so used to being in office and collaborating with each other. And like I mentioned, we had great amenities being offered to them. So it was almost, no brainer. We didn't have to force our employees to visit office, they were there. And having them work remotely, and these are, like I mentioned, a young demographic, 27 years old. Having them chained to one location and also with the other social restrictions that were coming because of this global pandemic didn't make it easier. But then, of course, a lot of senior leadership involvement does definitely help in the process, and that is something that we're still working.
Great. Rahul, can you show the results of the poll? Okay, let's see what we have here. Okay, not unexpected. A new work from home policy has been established in recent months. So we'll assume that it was less formal in the past, but equally, a third said there is no formal work from home policy still at this point. So that's quite interesting. Thanks, Rahul. So I would like to pose this next question to all the panelists as well. How are you thinking about work from home now, and has your thinking approached or changed from what your approach or your thinking was before this all happened? We'll start with Scott.
Yeah, I think as we, thanks, Michael. I think as here in Cisco, as we moved from, from a very lax, policy of people coming to the office when they chose to and then working from home and connecting through either collaboration tools or actually face-to-face, in the office or having a coffee downstairs, we really reflected on the fact that, there was a lot of things in play, and we really reflected, us as leaders, reflected on not just the working from home policy, but thinking about the human element of this, right? And not only are we asking people to work from home, but in this COVID situation, there are a number of people who ultimately live by themselves, also, you know, and they're stuck at home, and they're doing their work. So one thing we needed to make sure were people weren't overworking, okay, and just they had nothing else to do, so they were just grinding out, working. So we wanted to make sure that their mental health was right as far as overworking, but also the fact that you know, that those people needed that connection points, those touch points to their manager and their leaders, touch points to their peers. So really for us, it was really I guess leveraging our collaboration tools to bring our teams together to not only discuss business and set business goals on a weekly or monthly basis, but also just to have that human element of connecting with people, making sure they're okay, is your family okay, and things like that. So we really, being a tech company, interestingly enough, we really flexed on the human element of our workforce as opposed to technology during this time.
Yeah, I think that I'm one of those people that lives alone, so that you're referring to. So I was sort of dealing with that. And
Yeah.
what was interesting too is I've gotten to know some of the children of my clients as well during this process. So that's been quite fascinating as well. That would have never happened before. Subrad, why don't you take a answer at this one?
Yep, I would continue with what Scott says. See, what used to happen in the organizations earlier, and I would not say with every, many of the organizations had very flexible policy or very open policy. But most of the organizations, how did the employee used to perceive this? They used to perceive that if I am not well, or if my spouse is not well, or my parents are something like that, they at that time used to take this leave for work from home, and they used to work. So the productivity was there also, and they used to take it in this way. So how was the mindset earlier for this was, okay, I have some problem or I'm not able to go to the office, and I do it. But after this situation which has come, and the wellness and the employee safety, everything has come, now it has become more informal in a way that the business manager also says that please be safe, and the employee also says that I need to be safe. So if the transportation is not available, or if he finds that he is in a zone which is not so safe to come out or something, he on his own discretion is now taking the decision that whether he has to come to the office or he can work. Because this initial hesitation that which was there, that whether people can really work from home, the concept of self supervision or target oriented jobs, that concept was slowly settling. This was to come. Work from home, because of this traffic issues and pollution issues, was to come in near future. But this COVID-19 as thing has actually hastened it up, and now it is on the discretion of the employee where he wants to deliver. So the basic point is, it's on the employee where he wants to deliver. He can come to the office and deliver it, or if he wants, he can deliver it from remote basis or from home. So that's what I would say, that this is the reality today.
Well, that
Yeah,
sounds like
Michael.
a very, very positive change, giving agency to our teams, which is wonderful. Reem.
Yeah, so as an agile worker, reporting to global, nothing much change, right? Because that's the profile and persona that I adopt. So easily adopt to the new way of working. But while it differs when collaborating with others that have not adapted to this change, right? So we need to understand we can always share the experience and learning with teams, create best practice, collaboration tools, and make this approach and experience more exciting and positive. And that is through online platform, or even through through the experience itself. Some of the few key lessons learned is really having the leadership support, and that is a key element in ensuring successful mobility program. Another thing that we found out is the technology and training that can support the desired culture are critical elements in any mobility program. So that could help a lot in the transition.
Layla, what do you have to say on this one?
So what I think is, this has been a large-scale experiment, working from home, and this is across the globe, and it has mostly been met with, moderate to high degrees of success. I think initially, as such, there wasn't any major resistance to work from home. Of course, the policy existed in varying levels of, what do you say, flexibility in different organizations. But I think this phenomenon has forced us to think this through, as this could be perhaps a more permanent model of working in the future. So what that means for us is that it's forcing us to create procedures and protocols that can enable work from home. And I cannot agree any more than what Subrat and Reen have already mentioned. I mean, communication and involvement of the senior leadership team is extremely critical to make sure that, you know, employees are engaged, productive, and are also focused on their well-being.
Great, thank you. That was wonderful. Rahul, I'm gonna put up another poll. So this is an interesting one that a lot of us have been talking about, people have been writing about. This doesn't have every answer possible, but what is valuable to you about going to the office? And I think, Rahul, it's a multiple choice I see, so you can choose more than one. I have a question from the audience, a question for Scott. In your efforts in helping your clients adjust to the work from home environment, what sacred cows did you manage to liberate your client? In other words, what resistance were dispelled?
Just take myself on mute there. Okay, thanks, Michael. Yeah, I've seen that question in the chat, so I was being prepared. So from our perspective, I think, you know, our customers reached out to Cisco for leadership in this area. You know, we are a leader in enterprise, you know, collaboration tools, and we have a full suite of different things that enable people to work from home. So I think for us, it was really the businesses reaching out, ensuring that they had the necessary tools in place, the licenses, and everything. And then the second stage of that was really how to ensure the various roles know how to use those tools, right? I mean, it might be one in having a tool, but do you know how to set up basically a meeting? Do you know how to send a file? Do you know how to do various activities and functionality, right? So that was really the thing. And really, you know, I think all the senior leaders in the various business lines really got on board very quickly, because, you know, we know in stages it moved very fast where, you know, where people had to work from home. So I wouldn't say we got a lot of resistance. There was, I think the main resistance was just that change of function. How do people function from sitting at for example, in a network operations center where they've got their things in front of them, to actually how do I now function that by sitting in my lounge room with my kids behind me, right? And still be effective and functioning, you know, day to day. So that was really the thing that we had to focus on.
Yeah, I think it's interesting too. We found that it's a two-way street when you were talking about how you're engaging with clients, but it was also how we were engaging with them, because a lot of the controls and methods and approval workflows didn't work anymore in the same way on our end, communicating with them. So it was quite an interesting two-way learning experience for everyone. Rahul, do you have the results of the poll? Okay. Well, number one, I can collaborate with others. I don't think that's a big surprise. I think a lot of people miss the human interaction. And I think I need to get out of the house. I think a lot of us feel that way from time to time, and I think some feel it more strongly than others. What I find very interesting is 31% said it's not that important, I can work from anywhere, and a whole third. And I think, as Lila was talking about earlier, I think especially as you lay down these rules, and Subrat said, as you lay down these rules and policies, it's going to be more natural and easier going forward in the future. So I think we're already seeing, I think if we would have asked this question 4 months ago, I think that answer might have been different, because I think some people would have assumed they couldn't work from anywhere. Rahul, thank you. Okay, so I'd like to, Scott, sorry, I'm going to ask you a question now. Ken, you're next up on the questions.
Okay.
So this is the part where it's interesting, like I said before, everyone's sort of in a different life cycle. So I think this was good to have the different perspectives. And Cisco, I think you touched on this already, but they already had a strong work from home or work from anywhere culture before COVID-19. Were there any new issues that surfaced as a result to shifting 100% to work from home?
Sure. So for us, I mean, you know, particularly in our business areas, our sales areas and various things, you know, those functions were quite easy. Collaboration tools, no physical things needed to be required. One of the areas that we did have to shift, to a process that we didn't have in place already was number of our engineers who replicate customer problems, you know, in their environments and things using our tools and our equipment. We have labs for that. So we call them labs where equipment needs to be, you know, ported up, connected, etc. And we try to replicate bugs and problems with our customers. So an engineer would be in the office and they would just go to the lab. Now they can't. So that was one of the things. So we had to get special procedures and approvals put in place to have still someone and get approval from the various governments to have someone in those labs. And we had to have them, you know, and so the way we did it was through global. We had a couple of lab sites around the world. So we only had people working, you know, 10-hour shifts. But that was the thing where engineers could quickly go down and set up a system to replicate something for a customer issue. That became a big problem. They had to get someone, you know, they had to sit in a ranking order, get someone to do that in a remote location, hope it was done correctly, they can get the results remotely. So that was one of the big things that we had to shift to, which really became around process, getting those initial approvals to have someone to still be on our sites from the various governments and authorities.
Great. Reen, was there anything that happened or that surprised you or you didn't expect?
I think for us, there's not many surprises, but I do know some organizations that are still adapting. Yeah, so either they have trying to sort that the different ways with the right technology tools, with the right platform to address the communication. So for us, work has always been what we do and not where we do it. So we have transformed the office to innovate, to address the changing work style across the years. So progressively, the journey towards our office of the future always include a comprehensive mobility strategy and also value proposition, and that works together with the HR and all the relevant stakeholders. For example, we work into elevate the employee experience. We try to better time management, to reduce commute, improve sustainability. In terms of business continuity, we are working towards flexible portfolio to meet the business objectives, increase mobility and agility within the employees, and also align with workplace expectation of the evolving workforce of the future. So there's a lot of things that is happening, and how we do it is to look at it in a different manner and progressively improve in it.
Great. Lila, when this happened almost overnight, what was the experience of Lowe's and the employees when this shift happened?
Yeah, so let me just, help you understand, what we do as an organization. So, we're into retail operations and we provide home improvement products to millions of customers in the United States and the Canada region. So what we have here in the Bangalore office are teams that are serving customers that serve customers in our stores in those regions. And mostly these are the IT teams, analytics, store support, data management, and so on. So as it is, they were providing a lot of remote support to them, and truly speaking, we're not a very big global enterprise. I mean, we're big in numbers, but not big in presence. We only exist in these 3 countries, and with some other countries in Asia that support us on the merchandising front. But I think the big change for the team here was that they weren't able to go to office. We had imposed these restrictions on them. And so they had to depend on technology and whatever infrastructure was available for them in their homes to be able to connect and continue their work. Now, on the other hand, as an organization, we're still growing. The recruitment team is still active. We're still hiring new joiners every week. And this is across the different hierarchies of the organization. And though everybody has done a very good job at adapting to the new situation and doing a great virtual onboarding experience to the new joiners, it has, of course, become harder to give them a good onboarding experience, which is possible when you're doing it physically on site. And I think, an onboarding experience for any new joiner is also important because you're sort of like, introducing them to the company, the working culture, and the working style. And a lot of this can be absorbed so much better when you are on site in the workplace. So now you're taking the workplace element completely away from them. On the other hand, being part of the facilities team, it was sort of like ingrained in our minds that, we do our best when we are on site. But now we are still serving customers remotely. We are still servicing our teams remotely. And there have been new demands coming our way, and we're still working. We're one of the teams that is working overtime. So, so I guess I would say it's safe to say that everybody has sort of like adapted to this new situation, and the experience, for the most part, has been good.
Well, I can imagine what it would be like for the employee being onboarded remotely. It must be an interesting experience for them as well.
I've been get to know you sessions with leaders, and they have huge tasks and portfolios that they are managing. And trust me, I'm sure it's like very difficult, but going through the process of separating from your previous organization and getting onboarded virtually entirely, it's like, we're pushing new boundaries to how we adapt.
That's great. Hey, Subrat, in your opinion, what is the best approach to adjust and adapt to such shifts? Were there any issues that you think require deeper consideration than you would have expected before?
Absolutely, Michael. And before I give that, I really compliment Leila that, and it's a very encouraging sign that they are still hiring. Newspaper, this is very encouraging. Remote onboarding, we also had this challenge. So yeah, that's an issue. But for the deeper consideration, see, the most important thing now is health and hygiene. Now, health and hygiene was taken for granted. Let me say it earlier. That yeah, I'm well and nothing can happen to me. So this consideration is now very important. And for that, we need to actually understand that
Oh, okay. I think we lost Subrat.
am I there?
Ah,
Are
you're
you able
back.
to hear me?
You're back.
Oh, great. So we have a live demonstration of digital disruptions. But are you able to hear me? If you can just confirm.
Yes.
Okay. What I was saying is this is a three-part story. And the point is, one is on the employer side, one is on the employee side, and one is on the authorities side. I hope I'm getting an unstable internet connection. I hope you're able to hear me.
Go ahead.
Yeah. Okay. So it's very important that from the employer point of view, we are actually providing the best facilities. As I know, we have been providing the best of the facilities to the, because we've been employee centric, we have been providing it. Going to the severity of the COVID-19, yes, we are making special arrangements to protect our employees for that. It's also very important that in the future project.
Okay, I think we have breaking up. I think Rahul, let's move on to the poll, the next poll. Great.
We will take care. We will also take care of this. But and as I think so, us to get some.
Great. I don't, Subrat, I don't know if he can hear us. So let's do the poll. So how does your organization support work for remote workers? And then why that's happening, a question from the audience. From your organization's perspective or your personal perspective, what is the one aspect that suffered most during this large scale dispersion of teams? Layla, do you have a comment on that?
I think it would be collaboration. So, as much as, we have like great tools to keep us connected and to enable working from home or working from anywhere, I think it is that human touch and the collaboration that's been lost. And I think, we tend to underestimate the amount of work or transaction that occurs on a daily basis as we are crossing colleagues in the corridor or, in the cafeteria. And, taking that element completely away has been like something that technology cannot replace. With all due respect to Scott and Cisco and the great technology that they provide us with.
I'm sure he's okay with your statement.
No comment.
Oh goodness, Rahul, how about those results? Okay, wow, okay, we got a clear runaway winner. This is really fascinating. We leave it to the remote worker to plan their own remote work environment. Why I say this is fascinating is it's actually a few percent higher than when we asked the question in a webinar a couple months ago, the first webinar we did. And it was very surprising to me then, and it's even more surprising to me now that this still is how they answer. So it's really fascinating. So for all of you out there that are managing these kinds of programs for your company, I think it's an interesting one to take a look at. And I know a lot of folks don't know what to do right now. And we're certainly engaging with customers about that, of course, because we offer some tools, but it's interesting. I thought that perception would have been a little further along by now. Okay, so Reen, what is important to consider in the employee experience and change management? You talked about the communications plan before. So what's important about that when making these shifts?
Right. There's a few approaches in making these shifts, right? I think what's important is choice in solutions. The need to implement mobility at different levels that support the work. Secondly is user segmentation by jobs, by local culture, by local regulation that drives and map these people according to specific mobility program, and that's the persona. Thirdly, we can actually work with the people and management practices to enable mobility where and when is applicable, with clear guidance and support for work participation and also performance, right? And that is basically providing different types of workplace solution and framework. When we say about this solution framework, it can be or include physical environment, technology, and training to support the full range of mobility needs. So in terms of communication, we work very closely with HR and key stakeholders, basically to provide the clarity on the transition, to ensure to make the transition easy for our employees, and also position the employees for success. So these are some of the key criteria that we actually put on for communications.
Thanks, Reen. Subrat, so have outcomes, or for that matter, actually the way outcomes are measured, changed as a result of moving to distributed working? Let's see if he's back. I see his picture. Okay, he might be frozen, so we'll move on to Layla. How does working from home, this is a great one I want to hear your perspective on. How does work from home affect work-life balance, and what is positive and what do we have to pay attention to?
Yeah, so I think, hello, am I audible?
You are.
Can you hear?
Yes.
Okay, great. All right. So I think, when it comes to work from home, we are yet to scratch the surface of what this phenomenon means to us as individuals and businesses in the long term. And what I feel is that one does require very high levels of resilience and strength. And that's mental, physical, and emotional to cope with the situation, and also to deal with any sort of disruption that we may encounter, you know, whether it's family members interrupting or technology not cooperating or supporting with us. It really does take a lot, you know, when you're trying to work from home. We have been quick to adapt to this, but we also have to be cognizant of the fact that we've also had a lot of restrictions which are imposed on our movement. And this is due to the global pandemic. And all this is leading to an additional level of stress. And so when you have health experts out there giving you guidelines and talks on why it is important to you know, incorporate some sort of discipline in your daily routine, and to have a separation between your work time and personal time within the personal space that you are operating in, I think it does warrant our attention, and it is something on each one of us to create that discipline for ourselves. And like I mentioned, and I'm sure that, you know, our panelists and our listeners will also perhaps agree that while we have adapted to work from home, we are perhaps also working overtime. You know, it will definitely have an impact for us in the long term. I think what's positive for us is it sort of like, you know, reinforces that we are quick to adapt, quick to new changes. And the good thing is, you know, it's not something that, you know, only one specific region or country in the world is experiencing. This is a global thing. You know, everybody is sort of like, you know, learning from each other and each other's experiences. So we don't have to make the same mistakes that somebody ahead of us is doing. So I guess, you know, that's the positive thing, if I may say so. We're all in this together, even though if you're apart.
So Scott, I know that Cisco is sort of mastered remote communication, remote working, obviously, and has a technology for that. But how do we, when we're working outside of the office, how do we keep that sense of connection and belonging and build social cohesion? And how do we check in intentionally?
Sure. Yeah, so thanks for that question, Michael. It's a great one. So it's really driven from top down with Cisco. We our senior most leadership, our CEO, our EVPs in the US, it starts with them, and they do a complete check-in every fortnight with the whole company. Now there it is. Now for me here in Singapore, that's 7 a.m. in the morning, and I can choose to connect into that live or watch it remote or watch it at a later time, you know, through a recording. But you know, they're there talking around, you know, what's happening in the globe right now. You know, they're being very understanding. There's chats there where people can put in questions and things. So it really starts from there. They set the benchmark for us, right? As it flows down to the various leaders who are doing town halls, you know, ask me anything sessions, etc. And it gets down to my level as directors, and then my managers, etc. So we do at a minimum, I do a weekly check-in with my staff, and then every fortnight I do a complete all hands with my wider organisation, and it's a general discussion. You know, we don't tend to talk about business too much. How are things going with the employee? You know, and we even have you know, some things like Friday afternoon drinks, the remote drinks, right? So, and there's some fun things that happen around there. So we're still trying to be show that. Well, I've said it before, but that human element due to now. Being a technology company, you probably don't expect that a thing, but we have really rallied around that around this moment. So once again, leveraging our tools. We even leverage things like WhatsApp. There's WhatsApp groups that are connected, and things. So there's multiple ways that people are connecting, and it's not unusual for people to ping me and go, hey, have you got 30 minutes to have a general catch up, right? So where that might have been a website in the hallway that might have went for 15 minutes unofficially, it becomes a more official thing. And hence, you've got to be careful that your calendar doesn't fill up too much as well. So, that's an interesting thing as well. But really, top down from us, it's driven, and it's really part of our culture.
That's fantastic. Let's see. Question. I have a question so I'm gonna This is one of those interesting, potentially loaded questions. So I'm going to send it over to Subrat.
I hope you're able to hear me.
We can.
Oh,
That's why,
great.
because I really want to hear your answer to this question. How do we think the shift will impact real estate strategies going forward? And will it change as a result of what we learned through the last few months?
Yeah, absolutely. As what Laila had said, this was a big experiment pushed by, not by us, it was pushed by COVID-19. So, but it has really, it is evolving a strategy now. And what was there as a strategy? If you say earlier, there were dedicated offices. Many of us share that there were dedicated offices. Then it came to leased offices, and then it came to co-working offices. And people were thinking, why not work from home, looking to all these situations of traffic, pollution, etc. So the real estate strategy now is that how many people really have to come to the offices, how many would like to come to the office maybe for a week or so, and how many can really give a very good output, and they socially or maybe they will be very stable if they still work from home. On that basis, when the strategy is now being developed, the point is how many we can have the hot desking or the hot seating, so that for this floating population we can have it. Do we really need offices like, big offices at one place, and suddenly it comes in a containment zone, and you are thrown out that nobody can come? Can we have smaller offices? So it's like the reverse of a consolidation of offices, what used to happen. So the people are also thinking that way. Can we have the offices not only in the A class cities? Can we have it in the B class cities or something like that? So that, if you see what is happening to the A class cities all over the world now, we are really challenged in that. So that's how the strategy is being evolved, that how can we, but the most important part is the emotional well-being of all the employees and how that is catered. It should not be a knee jerk that, okay, from tomorrow we just do a work from home. Possibly the point is we don't have a, that kind of, see the my feeling is innovation and creativity. It used to actually happen when people used to sit together, when you are able to see the expression of each other, and then you were able to come out with new ideas and do that. I think so that has been one of the victims of this WFH, where you're not able to see each other. Most of the things, is that. So I think so we need to evolve that strategy, that, how these things all can be encompassed, and do we need to go into a office less situations. We are hearing that some people are now going with no offices. So all this needs to be actually thought in, and we are thinking in that way, that how future has to go, which are the critical functions which needs to go to the offices, and which are the non-critical functions which can do it. Even from the customer centric position, we are actually thinking that how can a virtual run through can be done, how can be a virtual experience can be given, so that the customers are also hesitant actually to travel or something, how we can actually showcase our products or the solutions what we have. So this is also giving us a sort of an insight that how the future is. I hope, Michael, I've been able to answer the question what you have said.
Very much so. I appreciate that. We have one more poll, and I want to get to a question as well in the chat. So this question is an interesting one that a lot of people are thinking about. How do you feel about returning to the office? And while you're thinking about that, Neil Sultan had a good question in the chat. The good news from the situation is that many who didn't think they could work from a location other than the office have discovered they can, which the panel has talked about earlier. But can you comment on how the experience might change how the office is used on those occasions when people do go in to be with colleagues? Reem, can you comment on that?
Yeah, so our vision of office of the future somehow will serve as a hub to house our specialty activities. Yeah, and that is to gather our workforce to collaborate and innovate, and through understanding, as per what I've said earlier, the different personas that we discovered from individual, by job scope, by type of work, because we do have various, manufacturing, office, sales, a different description of job description. So that that might change in terms of the future destination. And the purpose of this is to have more shared spaces to increase the utilization and also office energy. Another thing is the diversity of space to provide the choice and also flexibility within the office so that individuals and teams can actually choose what fits the task at hand. There will be more neighborhood seatings, which means that the team needs to determine how they want to use the space and how seats are being assigned. So we definitely work towards the neighborhood seatings as the future. And another thing is that the offices will continue to provide a certain infrastructure for those that actually need to perform mission critical work. So that is the office of tomorrow in our perspective.
Thanks,
Hopefully
Rain.
the answer.
That's great. The poll, Rahul, the results. Okay. Okay, I'm excited to get back to the office as soon as possible was the #1 answer. But it's interesting, 28% says, I don't think it's necessary for me to return to the office to get my work done. Again, I wonder what that number would have been if we asked the same question several months ago. So this is really fascinating. So we have one more question. We'll kind of make it a quick fire for you guys. And this is for everyone. So maybe if you can just give your quickest answer on this. So it's a loaded one, but maybe it'd be quite easy. So is work from home or work from anywhere here to stay? Will there be a vaccine day where we get a jab and go back to the office and forget this happened? So Sita, is it here to stay? What's going to happen? And Laila, start with you.
Yeah, I wish I had another 5 minutes to respond to this one, but then, quickly, I would say, I think work from home has always existed, but now we're going to view it slightly differently, and perhaps there will be some policies that will be built around to support that. And I think, it's not going to be like an instance of one size fitting all. I think it's for every organization to understand, relook into their priorities and decide what makes sense for them. How soon they want to get back and how soon they want to continue the work from home and to what extent they will support that. Those are my quick 2 cents.
Thank you. Scott, I think from your perspective, I don't know how you would answer this, but go ahead.
I think it'll be just business as usual for us.
Not surprised. Thank you. Good, quick answer. Thank you. Reen. Reen.
Well, to quote and unquote some statistic, right, in recent survey by Connect, right, 94% end users think that remote working will extend past the crisis. 69% stated that footprint will shrink due to the result of increase of work from home. And 55% thinks that work remote at least half the week. So we have to recognize a few things, right? Everyone's day looks different and can vary. The workplace ecosystem will continue to provide flexibility for balance and choice to get your best work done. And the office of tomorrow is not just about a single location. Technology will continue to allow employees to be efficient in variety of locations, and the new workplace or workspace will need to support that need. I think that would be
Great.
what it is.
And finally, Subrat, you get to wrap this up. Mute.
Sorry. I fully go with the panelists, what they say, but as a project management professional, I'll say there are lesson learned for everybody. The lesson learned for the employees is that well-being and health is in your hands. So you need to see, this pandemic has shown that if you try to be safe, you are safe. What about the employers? Now, employers, they have found that work can happen actually at home, and it can happen in a good way. So why not? The real estate cost, etc., is going high. So can we not try this and people work from home? It helps the employees also in many ways. Many of the feedbacks have come that they are not facing this 2 or 3 hours in traffic, pollution. They are better in health actually. At home, the family bonding has increased. The work-life balance has been better. So the point is that with all this, there is a lesson learned for everybody. But will people go to office? If you ask me, I want to go to office. And I think so most of the people want to go to office. We are social creatures. We want to meet. We want to go out. And our family wants to go out, dine, have, move outside. So I think so we want this thing to go out, this pandemic to go down, and then we are able to meet each other, share everything. That's what is my thought on the whole thing. Thanks, Michael.
Great, thank you. Well, we've come to the end of our time, and to be respectful, I know that here in Singapore, we have to get back to work, and in India, we have to go to lunch. So we want to be respectful of that. Thank you to all the panelists. It was great to hear all the different perspectives, and it was encouraging to hear, at least from the perspective of these panelists, that it wasn't as much a shock to the system as it could have been, that we were more prepared. More importantly, that the individuals were more resilient and really made it happen. And a lot of companies supported him in that. So again, wonderful topic. I think we could do a whole nother hour on it again. Thanks so much to Reen, Layla, Scott, and Surat, and Rahul running the background. Appreciate it. Please join us for our next, we'll have another webinar in 2 weeks, and we'll let you all know more about that. We will post up this, the recording of this in the coming days as well. So thank you, everyone.